I say this all the time on this channel, but I'll say it again here. It's actually not as hard to make a decent movie as Hollywood makes it out to be. Sometimes even the most simple approach can still work. It's all about the execution. And Plane is a good example of how to entertain audiences in the most simplistic and natural way possible. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Come on. Do it. Do it!
Making fun of the name of this movie has become the low-hanging fruit in the entertainment world this week. And I found it very interesting that Hollywood producer James Vanderbilt came to the title's defense in a recent tweet. He said, quote, "As a producer of Ambulance, I'm going to respectfully need everyone to back off of the title of Plane."
You about to cross some fucking lines.
Guys, relax.
Now obviously that's sort of a tongue-in-cheek response. But the funny thing is that while I was watching Plane, it popped into my head that this movie could potentially be this year's Ambulance. I don't know if you guys remember this, but early last year, I quite enjoyed, much to my surprise, Michael Bay's Ambulance.
No shit.
If for no other reason, because it felt like a well-done throwback to a simpler time in movies. And Plane has a very similar feeling to it. And I don't mean a throwback in a quirky meta way, or a self-aware type of way that we typically get. Plane is a movie that takes itself and its concept seriously, but also manages to have some fun along the way. Plane follows pilot Brodie Torrance, played by Gerard Butler, as he attempts to save passengers of his malfunctioning plane by performing a risky landing in unfamiliar territory. Turns out he landed in one of the worst places imaginable, and with the help of a dangerous prisoner he had on board, he must now rescue these passengers who were taken captive by the ruthless rebels who inhabit the island. Now on paper that does sound pretty cut and dry and maybe even a bit cliche. And if anyone watches my reviews, you know that I hate tired cliches.
Stop it!
But I did feel like Plane, at the very least, put a fresh spin on those cliches. And honestly, it helped. These tried and true plot points can still work, if the people trying to execute them put in the effort to make them work. I'm gonna be honest with you, after watching the trailer for this movie, I felt like I knew the entire plot. Like early in the film, when the plane starts to have some issues mid-flight. Obviously, based on the trailers, we know that they get out of that situation. But because of the way that that situation is presented to us in the film, I still felt a good amount of tension while watching it. And that, my friends, is filmmaking. Making that moment work from an emotional standpoint, even though I know the outcome.
You didn't see that coming.
Every once in a while, I like it when one movie feels like two movies kind of pressed together. What I mean by that is they solved this issue with the plane, which could have been a movie by itself in any other situation, but unfortunately for the characters involved, they find themselves in an even more dire situation if that's possible. So they're really stacking the deck against these characters. And believe it or not, I actually gave a shit whether or not these characters lived or died.
Inconceivable!
Mostly because, unlike a lot of modern movies, these characters actually seem like real people. Individuals who you can relate to. Specifically, Gerard Butler's Brodie Torrance character. I'm gonna say this right now, but Gerard Butler is kind of like the white Idris Elba to me. Meaning both actors typically deserve better movies than the ones that they get. I just remember that post 300, I thought Gerard Butler was going to become one of the biggest actors in Hollywood.
See, old friend, I brought more soldiers than you did.
And I don't know if that ever really happened for him, and to me that's unfortunate. And his portrayal of this pilot in Plane is a good example of why I feel that way. He just has one of those screen presences. He's likable. He's relatable. To me, you can't help but pull for the guy. And it helps when you make his character in this movie a talented pilot who goes above and beyond to protect these passengers that he feels a responsibility for. I mean, who can't identify with a character like that? Plus, to me, Gerard Butler always brings that kind of high-tea energy. We need more male stars like Gerard Butler in Hollywood who actually carry themselves like a hero should. He also gives me that Kurt Russell and Bruce Willis everyman feeling.
Besides that, it's all in the reflexes.
Especially when he finds himself in situations where he's way over his head, like in Plane. I did find his partner in crime, no pun intended, the prisoner played by Luke Cage himself, Mike Coulter, to be a bit more dry. He serves his purpose, I suppose, being this strong, silent Riddick type character.
Did not know who was fucking with.
But there's not a lot to get invested in as far as a character arc or anything like that. He's pretty one-dimensional and he's basically just there to fuck bad guys up with a sledgehammer. And that got me thinking, he would actually make a great Steel in live action. And that could also help us to erase Shaq's portrayal from our brains. The villains of this movie feel very 2008. I say 2008 specifically because that's the year that Rambo came out, or more specifically, Rambo 4. Maybe my favorite Rambo movie, by the way, but I digress. But the villains in Plane felt very similar to the villains in that movie. Just dastardly evil people who you very much look forward to them getting destroyed.
When you're pushed, killing's as easy as breathing.
By the way, one of the coolest villain deaths I've seen in a while happens in this movie. I won't spoil it, but I'll just say it involves the plane's landing gear and leave it at that. This movie is rated R, so there is a good amount of violence, which is welcome in a movie like this. There's even a very realistic hand-to-hand fight, which I thoroughly enjoyed. Also, I was a bit surprised about the amount of heart that this film has, especially towards the end. You really feel for these people who have been put through an ordeal, and the finale of the film is quite satisfying because of it.
I like it a lot.
Overall, I have to say that Plane gave me exactly what I was looking for out of a movie like this. And it also gave me some things that I wasn't expecting as well. Maybe because I went in with low expectations. There are some cliche moments for sure, but Plane felt like a kind of fun throwback to the testosterone-driven action movies that I grew up with. Again, simple but effective, but that's why I'm giving Plane the pleased Palpatine.
Good.
Y'all be cool. Nah.